Hi, I'm Milla, and welcome to another Milla's Game Room video. The Nintendo Switch is 8 years old in 2024 with countless releases available worldwide. Even though localizations of many of the Japanese titles are planned from the outset, not all games will get a localization. This is where fan translations come in and are what I want to discuss today. This video will focus exclusively on Japanese exclusive Switch titles that will likely never get an official localization on the Switch that you can patch and play right now in English. But given the Switch is still being actively supported and with no Switch 2 formally announced at the time of this video, out of respect to the developers and publishers, I'm going to set some ground rules. They are: no new games released during or after January 2023 will be in this video, as these titles are still new and the publishers are evaluating localizations. There will also be no titles that are still viable to get an official localization, with one exception I'll come to at the end. I will also try to avoid machine translations or in-progress projects that are not playable start to finish. Finally, because these games are not officially localized at the time of this video, this may unexpectedly change in the future. If any of these titles get an official release, whether on the Switch or on other platforms, please buy the official release to support the developers. So all that said, let's jump into it. It's difficult being a Trails fan in the English-speaking world. The games aren't all accessible on modern platforms, especially for the Sky Trilogy, which is only officially available on PC outside of Japan nowadays. The second inconsistency regarding the Trails series is the lack of English Switch releases for Cold Steel 1 and 2, which tell the tale of the original Class 7 as part of the Erebonia arc of the series. We got 3 and 4, the second half of the trilogy, on the Switch thanks to NIS porting the games for Falcom on their behalf, and published by NIS America worldwide. However, we didn't get the first 2 games. Cold Steel 1 and 2 were localized by Xseed Games in the mid-2010s. By the time the Switch took off, Xseed already moved on from Falcom. Aside from ports and a few PC titles you probably don't even know existed because Xseed didn't or couldn't port them to consoles where they'd actually sell. Well, that's where many fans believe the issue is. The Switch ports of Cold Steel 1 and 2 were not handled by either Falcom, Xseed or NIS America. They were ported by Clouded Leopard Entertainment, who have been Falcom's go-to publisher for the Asian market for quite some time. Clouded Leopard published Cold Steel 1's Switch port in Japan and Asia on the 8th of July 2021 before following up with Cold Steel 2's port on the 5th of August 2021. These ports will likely never get an official Western release due to the licensing issues involved with working with this additional third party, although this is not publicly confirmed. Many people assume Xseed Games own exclusive rights to the Trails games they localized for the English-speaking market, even though there is no publicly available evidence to suggest this is the case. In theory, another company like NIS could port the duology to Switch and use Xseed's translation, but we don't publicly know for sure whether this is possible. We can conclude, however, there is clearly some kind of hold up behind the scenes stopping an official English localization and port of Cold Steel 1 and 2 on the Nintendo Switch. This situation encouraged fans to patch the Japanese version of both Cold Steel 1 and 2 in 2022, meaning you can play the games from start to finish on your Switch. And the port works pretty well. It's basically the same as the PS4 version, which is really nice. While this situation is unfortunate, it pales in comparison to the Trails in the Sky trilogy. With Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2, the PS3, 4, Vita and PC versions are all readily accessible and affordable in English. However, this Switch fan translation option is a great alternative if you want to play all your games on one system. Idea Factory is one of the Nintendo Switch's biggest supporters in Japan. When they're not putting out new compile art RPGs, they're publishing visual novels, mostly otome games. While most new otome games have an English localization available or coming, the same can't be said for their older titles that have been ported to the Switch. When researching this video, I was pleasantly surprised to discover that the Switch port of Beastmaster and Prince got an English fan translation port based on NTT Solmare's release on phones. In this game, you play as Tiana, an aspiring animal tamer. When she arrives at her new home, she purchases 4 new animals to take care of, but she soon discovers that the animals are actually princes trapped under a mysterious curse, and they need her help to break this curse. Beastmaster and Prince became a popular title ever since its original 2010 release on the PlayStation 2. After a failed attempt to kickstart a PC localization by Gloxus, NTT Solmare took the reins to bring Beastmaster and Prince, alongside Wand of Fortune and 6 other titles, to their Storyjar mobile app. Otome fans who played the app enjoyed the game, but the mobile limited the title's reach. Eventually, a fan ported NTT Solmare's translation of the game into the 2019 Nintendo Switch release. At the time, this gave players more options to check out this classic otome game. However, as of 2024, the Story Jar app is no longer available, therefore making this fan translation the only way you can play this game. So if you're interested in playing this classic otome game, this is the way to go. Now we're moving on to one of the most well-known Japanese exclusive Switch titles, Yokai Watch 4. This is the 4th title in the popular Yokai Watch franchise and the first all-new title to be developed for HD platforms. Yokai Watch 4 introduced many new features to the series, including a third-person perspective, humans directly fighting, more than 2 protagonists, yokai keystones, and celestial discs. The original Switch release, subtitled We're Looking Up at the Same Sky, released in Japan on the 20th of June 2019, but that wouldn't be the last time we'd see Yokai Watch 4. Level 5 released a paid expansion, Yokai Watch 4 Plus. This added a new area, Hell's Kitchen, nothing to do with the TV show by the way, access to fan favourite area Blossom Heights from previous games, and much more. In December 2019, Yokai Watch 4 was released in Japan for both Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 4. Now, Level 5 did confirm a localization back at Anime Expo in 2019 for Yokai Watch 4, however, this was just months before Level 5 began to retreat from the worldwide market. They closed down their American branch and laid everyone off following the localization of Snack World for Dungeon Crawl Gold. Not only did Yokai Watch 4 slip through the cracks, but literally every other Level 5 title that came out around the same time did so as well. Level 5 have rapidly corrected course since and are now fully committed to localizing their games again, with the likes of Deca Police and Fantasy Life I all confirmed for a worldwide release. As no word of Yokai Watch 4's localization in English has surfaced since Level 5's revival, it's safe to assume it's likely not happening now, especially given other Yokai Watch titles have been announced since. It's worth noting that localization companies usually focus on localizing the newest titles in development, as not going back to the older titles, because this takes away time, resources, and profitability from newer titles. Additionally, Nintendo has not stepped in to localize Yokai Watch 4 for the Switch, which is a shame as it would be a good PR move for them to do so. That said, the game did get an official Chinese localization patch into all releases. Yokai Watch 4 even got an official release in mainland China last year, which is quite weird. As for the fan translation, fans stepped in to translate the game following the official de facto cancellation. Now there's at least one way for Yokai Watch fans to play this title in English. Unless Level 5 decides to re-release the game themselves, it's unlikely Yokai Watch 4 will ever see the light of day outside of Asia. If you're desperate to check out Yokai Watch 4, I'd recommend jumping on this patch. While I'm on the topic of Level 5, another fan-translated curio slipped through the localization cracks is this HD port of the original Yokai Watch title, creatively named Yokai Watch 1 for Nintendo Switch, which came out in 2019. It's the same game you know and love from the 3DS era, now on one screen instead of two. It's an interesting novelty as it shows Level 5 attempting to rework a game for the 3DS for one single screen. While it wouldn't be the first game to do so, that honour goes to Rune Factory 4, it's always interesting to see how other developers do it. This trend has continued since the release of these two titles. Given this project is a translation port, work on it was much easier to do compared to Yokai Watch 4. It also means that if Level 5 were to ever re-release Yokai Watch 1 in the future, it'd likely be based on this release. If you're interested in revisiting or playing Yokai Watch 1, this version is the one to get. Designed to be a collaboration between Sting's Dokapon series and Aquaplus's flagship Utawaremono franchise, this board game RPG blends the world of Utawaremono with the gameplay of Sting's popular Dokapon. It was the first all-new Dokapon game since Dokapon Journey way back on the Nintendo DS. Characters from Utawaremono, Prelude to the Fallen, Mask of Deception, Mask of Truth all come together in this one world, which includes lots of funny skits between the cast who have been redesigned in chibi form. Outside the multiplayer, the online multiplayer was also a big deal as it was a first for the Dokapon franchise. Not for Utawaremono though, that honour went to Utawaremono Zan on the PlayStation 4. Even though this title has a middling reception, it's still noteworthy. It was the first Aquaplus game released on a Nintendo platform ever, their only physical release on a Nintendo platform, and most critically, being the first fully complete original fan-translated game for the Nintendo Switch. It will play a key role in building the Nintendo Switch fan translation scene, as the Dokapon community stepped up to translate this game fully by mid-2021, which is under 6 months of the original Japanese release on the 10th of December 2020. Localization prospects were very much up in the air, and it seems fan translators were right on the money because Aquaplus would not localize the title. At this point, this game will likely never get localized due to a lack of interest from the companies involved. Plus stopped licensing out console games in 2020 and wouldn't do so again until Monochrome Mobius in 2023. The reason behind this decision is not publicly known and is part of a wider trend outside the scope of this video that I've talked about elsewhere. As for Sting, they seemingly chose to skip this title in favour of the newer Dokapon Kingdom Connect, published by Idea Factory and Compound Heart in 2023. Therefore, it's safe to assume this title will never see the light of day in an official capacity outside of Japan. If you're into anime or visual novels, one of the most well-known franchises is the When They Cry series, written by acclaimed scenario writer Ryukishi Umineko. The games in this series are Higurashi, Umineko and the eternally frozen Kikonia. Higurashi and Umineko have received several console ports throughout these titles' existence, including for the Nintendo Switch. I won't go over the plot as you probably already know them, instead I will focus on these ports because the reason why these games won't get localized on Switch is both complicated and poorly understood. In a rare move, 7th Expansion themselves confirmed the localization of these ports won't happen in response to a Change.org petition requesting a localization of Higurashi back in 2019. 7th Expansion confirmed that every publisher they contacted passed on Higurashi due to the sheer volume of text, and reusing the PC translation is impossible due to the difference in content. Although they said as far in their statement, bear in mind this was back in the late 2010s, so it's safe to assume they couldn't find a publisher and had to move on from the project. Additionally, although this petition only applies to Higurashi, the same logic can also be assumed for Umineko. So how is the content different? Well, the most obvious difference is that both Higurashi and Umineko use high quality portraits and music not found in the original PC release. This is because the assets are owned by Entagram, having gone through other defunct publishers like Alchemist and Kaga Create over the years. The official Steam releases all have the unofficial 07th mod that backports all these assets into the PC release. It's an open secret this mod exists and is basically required to get the best possible experience reading these games. If you go look at the Steam community pages for each title, you will see these assets used in most photos. Therefore, these licensing issues are more difficult to overcome now because this mod exists. You can just buy them on PC in a sale and apply this mod, instead of paying for a Switch version at full price. For Higurashi, other changes include the addition of choices, some minor scenario revisions to the main story, and lots of exclusive console arcs. The console arcs were ported and translated to the Steam release unofficially as well. It is really difficult to describe the scope of Higurashi as well as its text volume, especially if you've never played the games or only watched the anime. So let me put it like this in the context of the fan translation patch. This fan translation is a mishmash of both official translations from Manga Gamer, fan translations, a little bit of machine translation which is constantly being fixed and re-evaluated and being phased out, as well as a couple of untranslated arcs. It's a massive game to work on, both as a publisher and as a player, even more so than the already heavily bloated PC release. However, it is also seen as the definitive way to experience Higurashi by those who played it, which is why this patch exists. For Umineko, while the scope is slightly less massive, the content added here is still overwhelming. While the core 8 arcs are much closer to the PC release, the all-new content makes this port a challenge to translate too. Some of this was released on PC before by 7th Expansion, other content is very likely what was originally going to be included in the 2018 announced Umineko Gold expansion of Umineko on PC. This was a Kickstarter project that, among other things, promised new content written by Ryukishi himself. While the Umineko Gold Kickstarter was never released for reasons not publicly known and is dead at this point, this exclusive written content was still written and incorporated into the console release instead. This was later fully translated as part of the fan patch. In fact, much like Higurashi, Umineko on Switch is considered the best way to play this game by those who've played it, therefore it's a shame not to see an official localization. This is a lot, and I hope what I've said so far is enough to really put into perspective the sheer scope of these ports and how they've ultimately made an official English release of the When They Cry series outside of PC basically impossible. It is a huge shame, as I'd love to see it, as I'm sure many people watching this do as well. If you want to play Higurashi and Umineko, these Switch patches are something you should consider. Continuing on from the theme of Ryukishi Umineko, there is another title he's written that recently got an English fan translation patch for the Nintendo Switch, titled Kaleidoscope of Phantom Prison. This Denpa mind-break visual novel was released in 2020, with former key illustrator Itaru Hinoue handling the art. This title is comparatively more obscure than When They Cry, so I'll need to outline the story a bit. 4 girls, all close friends, are locked in a room with iron collars wrapped around their necks. a boy in a cage is lowered down from the ceiling. These people must participate in a death game where the mysterious voice dictates that following a trial, one of two outcomes is possible. Either 3 of the girls are saved, or everyone dies. It's pretty grim. Unfortunately, Kaleidoscope is considered to be Ryukishi's weakest work. These quality concerns range from unintentional transphobia as part of the game's plot, right the way through to its overall short length. These issues make an official localization of Kaleidoscope difficult. Additionally, given the current political climate surrounding transgender rights in the West, not translating this game officially might actually be for the best. So why have I included this game here? Well, it is one of the very few original visual novel translations available for Switch and is noteworthy in that respect alone. If this title interests you, there is also a patch for the PlayStation Vita version if you don't have a Switch. The final game for this video is Dragon Quest X Offline. Yes, people kept leaving comments on my Dragon Quest 3DS video because I was pronouncing it Dragon Quest X, so I'm making sure to pronounce it correctly now. I will also say this up front, while the PlayStation versions have recently been announced for localization into Chinese and Korean, the same cannot be said for the Switch version. While this announcement has led to lots of fans speculating that Square Enix or Nintendo will bring the game to the West, which may still be viable, this was the exception I mentioned at the beginning, this is not guaranteed. The reasons for this are why the game is in this video. But first, what is Dragon Quest X Offline? It's an offline adaptation of the popular MMO originally released way back on the Nintendo Wii, but has since come to almost everything platform-wise in Japan since. The story of Dragon Quest X is well known at this point, I'm not going to go into it. Developed by BB Studio of Super Wars fame, this version adapts the first 2 releases for the in-game Dragon Quest X world into a single-player experience. This includes a change in art style to be more chibi-like. It's an adaptation of the game many people outside Japan hoped would happen, as they rightfully believe an offline adaptation of Dragon Quest X is the only way this title will ever see an official localization. So why might offline not get localized? Well, firstly, Dragon Quest X Offline exists to funnel people into playing the MMO in Japan. This is why only one expansion for this offline version exists, which covers up to the end of version 2 in the MMO. Fans playing offline will find many unanswered questions, as even after 10 plus years, the plot is still ongoing. It's now at the 8th expansion. Unless Square Enix intends to adapt all other expansions in the future, it's unlikely they will commit to localizing this offline version for the West. They know more casual RPG fans will be disappointed and confused by the story due to understandably believing Dragon Quest X Offline is a fully standalone experience. As of early January 2024, no further expansions for the offline version have been announced. It's worth noting that Dragon Quest X did get Chinese servers for a few years back in the mid-2010s, so there is some precedent for releasing the game in Southeast Asia. The same, however, cannot be said for the West. As for the fan translation, this is based on the translation done for the online release, which you can access easily by playing the game on PC. There are many guides on how to do this. All you need is a VPN and an account. Unless you want to check out this specific offline release or you don't have a hack Switch, you may as well just play the full online game on PC, which I'll be doing at some point. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's video. Are there any Switch fan translations you've played or want to play? Let me know in the comment section below. If you haven't played any of these particular translations, there are also links to all of those in the description below as well. Please like, comment and subscribe, notification bell, consider becoming a member too if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much, have a lovely day, bye bye.